On this episode, I sit down with Emily from SucSeed.ca. Emily and the team over at SucSeed have created hydroponic grow kits that let people grow fresh produce year-round without the use of soil or sunlight. Emily does a wonderful job of explaining the SucSeed story, so I will just let her take it away.
Yeah, we're a hydroponic social enterprise, so we're one of the most affordable ways in Canada to grow fresh produce year-round. And then all of our systems are produced in partnership with Choices for Youth here locally, so they're produced by youth experiencing homelessness.
Okay. And what exactly is the product, and how did it all get started?
Yeah, so it started out of a group called Enactus Memorial. So it's part of a global organization of 77,000 university students around the world that are dedicated to creating social, environmental, and economic change. So about 2.5 years ago, a group of us on the Memorial campus came together, and we really wanted to do something impactful here in the province. It was at the same time that you were seeing a lot of the heartbreaking stats around food insecurity rates in Labrador, that people were unhappy with their food, and also around the time when a head of cauliflower was costing more than a dozen roses. So we sat there at MUN and said, hey, there's something here that we need to be able to do. This is our province. We need to come together and find a solution. So came up with the idea of creating a home hydroponic system that was easy to use. It would allow you to grow fresh produce year round, and the only thing that you'd need to add to it would be water. So it wasn't restricted by soil quality, by climate, by where you were. So at the time, our big lofty goal was we wanted to put 15 in Labrador, and to us, that's what success was going to look like. Fast forward, we had an article go out into the local newspaper, so the Telegram, and in 24 hours, we had 100 people wanting to buy these systems. We had a prototype that we didn't even know if it would work.
Yeah. So what was the next step after that, after you saw the demand for it?
Yeah, so I was actually away at a conference with one other employee, Ayan from Choices for Youth, and I showed them this prototype that we had just come up with and said, hey, like, do you think there's something like we could do together? Like, is there an opportunity to employ a couple of youth that you guys are working with? Could we create some jobs here and build 100 of these? Then we met Adam, who became our first kind of production coordinator and a huge partner and a piece of making this happen. We came up with a way that we could produce these incredible units that tech services out of the engineering department at MUN came up with the design for, and sat there and said, okay, how can we make this in a way that's easy to produce? It can give youth skills, that both hard and soft skills that could transfer into other employment opportunities, but also be something that's efficient and optimized for growing in rural and northern communities. So then we came up with our next big lofty goal, which was to build 100 of these over the next year, to sell them and then use a portion of the profits to donate those 15 systems that we originally wanted to sell to Northern Labrador. So sat out, did that. About a year later, we had almost 500 systems in operation. We had systems across the province, across Canada, and it was really getting to the point where it kind of had outgrown the resources that we had as a volunteer organization. We ended up winning the Enactus World Cup, and it really needed kind of structure and support around it. So pitched to the team and said, hey, me and hopefully a couple of the alumni, can we get together and actually turn this into a sustainable social enterprise? So we've put way too much work as a team into this. We need to make sure that it keeps going. So they were on board, support the transition. Now there's actually 3 of us that used to be part of the Enactus team that are employed with SucSeed, which is amazing, and pitched to the Genesis Center for them to take a chance on us. We were a little bit of a different client, so tech incubator, and we were a tech product, but with a very, very social heart and social core. They took a chance on us, gave us office space, support, and kind of put the business structure behind things. Then expanding ever since. So we have over 1,000 systems operating coast to coast. We're working with school boards now to get our systems in the hands of more children, working with health authorities, working kind of with a lot of incredible organizations across Canada and hopefully outside of Canada coming up pretty soon. But it's been this, I think, amazing journey, and we've made the joke in the office that we're truly living like the Newfoundland dream. So it's a case of so many community members and so many people coming together on the island to do something that has huge impact here locally, but also has huge impact across Canada. And I think it's really putting us on the map and showing how resilient Newfoundlanders can be and how we can take some of the most simple things that can be found in a hardware store, or bring together kind of the pieces to create a product that's really making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. You nailed so many points.
Sorry.
Right, as you were talking,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the questions I prepared, and then I was like, oh, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one. No, that was awesome. It's a really cool, when I was like just reading the stuff on your website, every aspect of the business is like feel good. Like the fact from like the person using it, the final product, it's helping remote communities get access to food and produce that they normally wouldn't have. Plus, even the production of the product is helping at-risk youth, right? The partnership there. What do you remember the first delivery of one of the systems and the people who used it? What was that story?
So the first delivery of kind of using the systems outside of our team, we took a trip up to Northern Labrador. So it was bringing these systems in the homes of people who are going to use it to grow fresh kale and fresh lettuce. And it was a huge experience for our team because it was one of the first times that we got to see some of the challenges that are happening around food security across the province. So we had been told beforehand, like, make sure that you take any type of dietary restrictions, like food that you would need with you, like make sure you like take extras just in case. And I don't have any dietary restrictions. I eat everything. I love meat. I love potatoes. I love everything. So I almost in a way didn't take it serious at the time. I was like, I'll be fine. Like I'll find stuff in the grocery stores. Like don't need to worry about me. Like thank you for being concerned, kind of thing. But then you go up there and you see the quality of the produce, or having to pay $12 for a moldy pepper. And like I like vegetables, but it raised a huge red flag in my head that why would you pay so much for such low quality of produce when there's a bunch of other options? So even my week up there, I don't know how much veggies I ate, but I can tell you it was very little. And it was so disheartening coming from an agricultural background. So I grew up on a farm. I know where my food comes from. I've always been a part of that and had such a connection with food. And to see people in Canada not having access to that was disheartening. Like we've developed technology that we can grow produce on Mars, but there's a huge part of our country and a huge part of our province that's just getting forgotten, which it broke my heart.
Yeah. It's always been mind-boggling to me how in Newfoundland we have such an abundance of natural game, and like from a hunting gathering standpoint, Newfoundland is such a great place for it. But yet on the flip side, there's this whole food insecurity where we don't have access to all the fresh stuff. Not to mention like the northern communities who are paying $12 for a moldy pepper.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely insane. That must have been a real perspective changer when you went up there and saw that. And
definitely. And then you start to kind of look at the history behind it. So 70 years ago, I can't remember the exact stat, but we used to produce something like 96% of the food that we actually consumed. And now we're producing less than 10, and Labrador produces less than 1% of the food they consume. Like, those are scary stats.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was historically that caused that shift, but it's something that us as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, we need to become aware of, and we need to start doing something to change that. Because if you look at how our trend is going in terms of food production, and you compare that to the global needs, so we need 70% more food by 2050, and we're producing less, we're putting ourselves in a very risky situation, in my opinion.
Yeah. So just to go back to the story of going up to Labrador again and delivering the system, what was the reaction from the people who were using it?
They were excited. It was a way, a lot of them had had gardening experience during the summer. So this was a way that they were able to kind of continue that. And even from kind of a learning your heritage standpoint, I learned a lot of stories about my family that I didn't even know before I went up there. So my grandfather had a mobile vet clinic when he moved over to Newfoundland, and he used to take his boat and sail up along the northern peninsula go into a lot of these inlet communities and do veterinarian surgeries, for a lower cost. So they didn't have access to that type of resource at that time. So for me, it was kind of this also like living on a legacy. This is something that my grandfather did
That's
in
awesome.
his own way, and now we're doing that through SucSeed.
Crazy. So how long you have different systems? How long
Yeah.
does it take to get a yield of crop from, say, the system that you guys brought up there for the first time?
Yeah, so about 5 weeks if you want to do lettuce or herbs. If you're doing your flowering plants, so your tomatoes, your bell peppers, those get longer depending on the type that you're growing.
Okay. And how much will one system produce?
So we had a couple of, I guess, number tracking done on what the system could produce. So it's about 125 pounds of produce if you're growing flat out, you're growing larger types of produce. I find that the stat is hard to kind of quantify in your brain because what is a pound of lettuce?
Yeah.
What is a pound of tomatoes? So around lettuce, tomatoes, kale, you can get 12 full harvests of that item every 5 weeks. And then tomatoes and bell pepper, again, it depends on what you're growing, and that's not the
Okay.
the greatest answer, but
Well, let's just say we're doing lettuce. Like, how many salads does a 5-week cycle get me?
Yeah, so you can get over 12 full heads of lettuce. So lettuce actually regenerates, so you can break off the outside leaves and continue to grow. So I have one system in my basement that's completely dedicated towards kale. I love kale, and it's so hard to find at different times.
Yeah.
I haven't bought kale in the past year and a half, 2 years, and I've had an abundance that I give to like my neighbors or friends or bring into the office for salad days. So you can make, especially with the leafy greens and herbs, you can substantially offset your diet.
Those grow a bit better than, those are probably the most producing plants of the things that you can grow in the systems, right?
They're the most foolproof ones. So if you have to leave for a week, 2 weeks, or it's your first time gardening, those are the ones that all you have to do is add water and they will grow.
Okay.
Your peppers, your tomatoes, you have to self-pollinate. Unless you want to let a herd of bees into your house, wouldn't recommend. Those are a little bit more based on how green your thumb is, how much time you're taking with your plants. There's a lot more kind of human error that can go into growing those types of vegetables versus your leafy greens and herbs.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll end up putting pictures on the website just so people can actually see and direct them to your website so they can see what it looks like. But if you were to just give a visual description of what they look like, what would you say?
So our larger systems, our grow gardens, are approximately about 2 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet. So it's a black container, which is your reservoir for your plants. So you fill that portion up with water, and there's an air stone that goes in it with it as well. Then there's a yellow top that has 12 pods where you actually grow your plants. And then there's a light that goes on top of it. Our Grow Mini is about the size of a shoebox. It's a white container. It's actually whiteboard erasable, so you can design the outside of your system. You can name your plants. You can do some fun things with it. And then there's a clip-on light that would go on that part as well. And that one has 4 pods.
Okay. So how does it actually work? Like, what's growing?
Yeah. So basically you fill your reservoir, which is your bottom container, with a certain amount of water. You add plant food, so your plant nutrients that the plant needs to grow. You set up your air stone, so you attach it to the bottom of your container. Then you put your top on. You add your 12 net pots, so that's the mechanism that kind of holds the growth medium and the seeds. Then you add your growth medium, which for most cases for us we use rock wool. And then you plant your seeds. You turn on your system. You let the seeds sprout for about a week, and then you hang your light above it. And you wait a couple of weeks. You add water and nutrients every now and again, and then you have fresh produce.
Did you say rock wool?
Rock wool, yeah.
I'm not a gardener. I don't even know what that is. What is it?
So it's spun rock. So it's basically a growth medium that replaces dirt. So it absorbs water and keeps the water and nutrients around the seeds. Other people use cotton for it. You can use Purolite as a growth medium. We're trying out peat moss right now and coconut husk. So there's a lot of different options on what you can use.
Why don't you think anyone's done this before? Like, now it seems like one of those things, right, where it's like, how has that not happened yet?
I think it's 2 things. One part on kind of the more consumer side. I think often we get stuck in this tech world where we want to put as much technology into things, whether it's AI or it's mechanisms that make things as easy to grow that you just need to click a button and you come back in a couple weeks and everything's grown. So part of it is getting, I guess, tied into that tech. It has to be bigger. It has to be more technology, more kind of mentality. And then the second piece, I think it's a kind of a scale piece. So a lot of the people who have been trying to tackle issues around food security or just growing food have been looking at a lot of large scales. So you're seeing $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 greenhouses being set up. You're seeing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million farms being set up instead of going back to where agriculture began, which was a backyard garden and everyone kind of growing for themselves, their families, and their neighbors around them. So we've kind of, I think, rewind technology values in a way. So bringing it back to that true connection that you have with your food and bringing it back to that feeling of everyone having a garden in their backyard, except now it can be in your basement. It can be in a closet. It can be in your porch. It can kind of be wherever you want.
So it's a full cycle, all in the one unit. You don't need any external input. It's all,
yes.
You buy the package and you get it and you can grow lettuce as long as you have the nutrients and the seeds and everything else.
So we provide everything that you need, just add water.
Wow. Do you have to worry about like the pH level in the water and stuff, or is that corrected by what comes with the kit?
So the nutrients are pH self-correcting. For the majority of kind of the metro area, a lot of most communities that we've worked with right now, pH hasn't been an issue. We do include pH testers with our kits, so you can check your pH to make sure it's within the range. A couple of the more rural communities, we have seen pH issues. So in those cases, there's household items that you can use to adjust pH, but there's also professional nutrients that you can get that have pH, more strong pH adjusters in it as well.
Okay. Because I know I go around the bay sometimes and the water is different. It's a different kind of water.
Definitely.
Right?
No, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. So right now what are like the furthest reaches of the product? Like you have some in Labrador, and are they right across Canada? You mentioned going international.
Yeah.
Like, where are they currently and where do you plan to go?
So currently they're kind of scattered across Canada. Our biggest focus right now has been in the North and Atlantic Canada, but we're starting to get some traction more out west and in central Canada now. Expansion, food security is in need. Food security, food safety, eating fresh produce is in need everywhere. We're looking at a couple partnerships in the States right now with a couple different school boards and companies to do kind of healthy living programs for their employees. So actually growing fresh produce at work and having herbs in your kitchen at work. So launching a couple of those programs over the next little while. But we definitely have our eyes set on the global market and what the full potential of these systems could be.
Mm-hmm. Are they all solely being produced here?
Yeah. So every single system that has gone out the door has been produced through a partnership with Choices for Youth, which is super exciting and something that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah. That's cool. So I guess the next steps are just scaling up and building good relationships and partnerships that align with your values and spreading the good word.
Yeah. So a big part of it is we're trying to get the word out more across Canada. So working with different partners. We've been doing like social media testing and following and trying to build this community across Canada. And another part is we're doing product innovation. So we're looking at new products that we can add. Is there different types of nutrients that we could make here and kind of making a more holistic system? So there's also product innovation happening as well.
Where would you place the produce that grows on like a scale of, obviously some produce is better than no produce, but is it like organic? Is it semi-organic? How does that all work?
So organic
whatever
is kind of
semi-organic is, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but like.
So it's pesticide free. There's no chemicals that you have to put into it. So it's tough because a lot of the regulations around organic requires things to be grown in traditional soil. So obviously with our systems, there is no soil. It's water, it's nutrients, and a growth medium. So it doesn't classify with the Canadian requirements for organic. The nutrients that we provide are all things that you would similarly put on your plants outdoors. So it's similar to fertilizer. It's what the plants actually need to grow without any of the harmful chemicals that you need with pesticides.
Yeah.
So there's long debates on Reddit and a bunch of different agricultural articles around, is hydroponics more healthy for you? Is traditional gardening more healthy for you? So I think it all comes down to where your values are around it. I place a huge value on things that are locally grown. So if something in my value set on what is considered healthy for me, if something is grown locally, whether it's traditional or it's hydroponic, I think there's high value placed on that, because you know where that food is coming from. You're taking control of kind of where the food supply is coming from in the process. You know that there's not 30 touches that happen from it coming from southern Mexico up until Newfoundland. So it's kind of it's a subjective terminology.
Yeah. I was almost like hesitating to ask the question whether or not it's like organic or how does it fall into that spectrum, because it's like, well, if you're in a community where there's no produce, or a cauliflower costs $15, like it's better, even if it's not organic, it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
So,
but even really comparing it to like what's happened with like E. coli and romaine lettuce.
Yeah.
Like that ability to know exactly where your food is coming from and how it's gotten to your plate, it adds, in my opinion, a huge value to the definition of what is healthy produce.
Yeah. I think a big thing here in Newfoundland, I'm sure it's similar in other communities where they don't have as much access to fresh stuff, is just educating people on how important it is to consume the stuff.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with someone not too long ago, and I was saying how before I moved back here, one of the factors I was considering was how crappy some of the produce could be in the grocery store. And they couldn't believe that was something I was thinking about before moving back here. And there's someone who's lived here their whole lives. And they're like, what do you mean it's so bad in the grocery store? I'm like, the fresh produce, the fruits and vegetables here are not that good compared to other parts of Canada, right?
Yeah.
And Newfoundland is kind of the end of the line for a lot of stuff, right? You take it home and it's either on its way to going bad or it's already bad, right?
Yeah.
So how have you found, when it comes to your business, like just educating people on the benefits of eating healthy? And
it's been definitely a huge part, especially with youth. So right now we're in over 300 schools, working with 6,000 children across Canada right now on those topics. So showing them that, okay, when you see your lettuce in the grocery store, there was actually this full root system that was there. And this is what these plant roots actually look like. And when you see a carrot like that, there used to be kind of a stem and a stalk on that. And showing them kind of where food actually came from and talking to them about things like that. And what's been, I think, one of the most impactful things for me is we're getting kids excited about growing peppers and kale, and just to think about the health changes that they're inspiring within their household. So when your kid comes home and they're really excited about kale, that's going to start to change the mindset of families. So you're going to have parents that are now going to start to introduce new things into their diet and be more kind of health conscious about where their food is coming from. But for me, it's also a big part on the consumer side of things, and showing everyone that agriculture isn't difficult. It's not some crazy science. It's something that everyone can do and can do easily. I was fortunate enough that I grew up in a very agricultural based family, and that was kind of a lot of the values and a lot of the core pieces of what I grown up with. So it's this huge learning experience for everyone.
Yeah. It must be cool to see kids watch them experiment, see the progress of it growing.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was, I think it was like grade 2, when we put like the little bean in the cup with some soil, and you watch the sprout come out. You're like, whoa, it's crazy. But eating it is like totally different, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you grow some lettuce. I was at someone's house and we had a salad, and they went out right before supper and took the lettuce out of the ground, and it was like a different experience altogether, right? It's like I couldn't hear the lettuce screaming or anything, but it felt like that fresh, right?
Yeah, but you rewind 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, that's what everyone did. So if you were preparing a salad for your friends and family, there's a pretty good chance that you went out in your backyard and you picked those lettuce, those tomatoes that day or the day before, and it's it's something I think we've all lost touch with a little bit, and it all comes down to like lives getting busier and values changing and the commercialization of agriculture. But it's, I think, an important value to any family.
Yeah. I think what you were saying earlier about how the technology that you implement is kind of a rewind, like it's a taking away of just thinking more simply about a solution, right? That's kind of a common theme that I'm starting to see just with people that I've talked to on the podcast, like Dennis, who was foraging stuff, and then there's also Five Bros Cheese, like Adam. Like these are more local things that are happening. People are starting to realize, like, oh, we can do this, like we can make this, and it's better, and it benefits everybody around us. Same with the craft beer scene exploding in Newfoundland. Like, why hasn't that happened until now? It seems, I mean, Newfoundland always seems like it's a little behind the curve on things, but it's so nice to see that whole industry is exploding here, and
but maybe
people are bringing stuff back home.
Yeah. But in a way, I almost think it's a good thing that we're behind the curve, because you look at, so technology has had incredibly positive effects in so many ways, but it's also had some negative ones as well. That's created this, I think in some cases, this loss of touch with reality. And it's made us forget where we came from, our heritage, our history, that we can do things like grow fresh produce in our backyard, and that things can still be cool. And with all of this technology and over commercialization of things, that's one of the reasons why I love Newfoundland so much. We're true to who we are, we're authentic, we're that homegrown, feel good type of people, and that's what's made this province so special.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to be talking about fresh growing produce in the middle of winter too right now.
It's getting cold out there.
Yeah. Jeez, I might have to get one of these things. It's crazy. All right, what else we got on the go here? You nailed all my questions right off the bat.
Sorry.
You're too good. What have been some of your obstacles for the growth of SucSeed? By the way, SucSeed, like, what a wicked name.
I know.
Did that come like right off the bat, or was that?
There was a lot of brainstorming. One of our Enactus volunteer members came up with the name, and as soon as Tyler had said it, was like, bam, that's what it is, because it embodies so many things about what we're doing. So the seed part, obviously, around growing, but also we're growing minds, we're growing people. Like, one of our core values with staff is this continuous constructive learning and growing everyone and everything around us. But for obstacles, definitely the transition from going from a volunteer group to actually having to run things as a business. So we went from 30 volunteers that were dedicated to do it to a small team, and kind of putting the infrastructure around everything, putting processes in place, like making this a full business wasn't easy.
No.
A huge learning experience and a great one. Another one for us has been around like demand and figuring out who our perfect customers are. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to the fact that everyone needs food. There's a huge educational component to this, whether you're 4 years old or you're 104. There's learnings that can happen from these systems, and everyone deserves fresh produce. So it's been, I think, a challenge for our team to come up with like who that exact target market is, because everyone deserves it.
Yeah. So what have you got so far?
So we kind of have it broken into 3 areas, and we haven't quite decided. One big piece is around schools, educational organizations, community groups, so that continuous learning, putting this technology in the hands of kids so that they can continue to grow. Second one is around rural and remote communities, so people who don't have easy access to fresh produce, that it's of high quality. And then the third section, we're looking at those hobby gardeners, so people who want to start taking control of their food supply. They want to make those first steps. They might have a garden in the winter and they want to keep doing it, or the garden in the summer, they want to keep doing it over the winter. Or even if you want to sprout your plants early. So we only have a 100-day growing season here in Newfoundland. So if you want to extend that by 30 days, which is a big percentage when you think about the entire time that we have, you can start your plants in our systems and then transplant them out into your garden afterwards.
Okay. I didn't even think about that either.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story, and I'm not sure if I said this on the podcast before. I've told it a couple times, but my mom grows peppers in summer, and she's
Cool.
out in BC, in like more southern BC,
Yeah.
right? So she has peppers and garlic and onion, and it's not even like a big effort on her part. It's just she has a little bed there,
Yeah.
and it just sprouts up, and it's amazing coming from like a Newfoundland perspective, right? Because it's just so easy for her.
Mhm.
So I was at her place, and I picked a few peppers off, and I went in for supper, and I was washing them off in the sink. And when I was washing them off, I was caught myself looking for the sticker.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It's like, oh my,
But
I
that
need to change
happens.
things.
No, but that's completely normal. Like we've done presentations numerous times, and people see things growing off the produce and say, "What's that?" And it's the roots, or it's the stems, or it's the leaves, and it's
That's
because
so
we've
crazy.
lost connection.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So out of touch with that stuff. um, so the future goals, obviously, expansion.
Yeah, definitely. Building our
Um,
team, new products, and I think the biggest thing is we want to be part of that reconnecting people with their food, and it's part of the solution to this global problem that we're going to have around food supply.
Yeah, and I guess all over the globe where there's northern communities, it's also a similar story, right? It's hard getting access to fresh stuff.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
then even around like food safety. So there's countries around the world where even when you buy fresh produce on the shelves, there's no trust to where that food has come from. So this is also an option for areas there as well. Like you know exactly what's going into your produce, you know exactly where it's coming from. So it's both on I think, ability to grow outside, but also an ability to have trust for the food that you consume.
So the light in the system, is
Yeah.
it like what kind of light is coming out of the lamp that goes over the
Yeah.
plant?
So it's an LED full spectrum light. So basically, if you break it down, plants need red spectrum light and blue spectrum light to grow. So the lights that we use have both, but it's been incredible the efficiencies that have happened over the past 2 years in lighting for plant growth. They've been able to make LED lighting work. So before you used to have to use these high pressure sodium bulbs to grow plants indoors, which would add like $50 to your electricity bill every month and really didn't make it sustainable. But with the improvements in technology, so one of the great sides of technology has been the advancement of LED lighting and has kind of made indoor growing a lot more affordable.
Are people using these things to grow weed now? Or-
The constant question. So our kits, as they
as
come...
soon as I hear hydroponic, I just think weed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Our systems, as is, the light and the nutrients we provide are not strong enough to grow cannabis. Main reason we're partnered with a nonprofit who produces our systems, and also a lot of these systems go into the hands of children. So although hydroponics is the main method for growing cannabis, our lights are not strong enough, nor are our nutrients.
Have you thought about starting like a subdivision of the company to
We've talked
bring in a
about
little
it,
revenue?
but it goes kind of back to the core values of SucSeed and why we do this. And it's around food security. It's around providing people with the food that they need to grow.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's someone out there and a couple people out there doing this, but for us, we're food.
Fair enough. Wheat brownies are food.
Fair.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's cool. Stick to the core values.
Yeah.
I like that analogy you used at the beginning. The cauliflower costing as much as a. How much does a bouquet of roses cost?
I think at the time, this was a couple years ago, and my memory is not the greatest. I think a dozen roses was costing $9.99 or $10.99, and I had a cauliflower had gone up to $12.99.
Wow.
I'm not positive on those numbers. I have them home, but
Where was it?
Here locally.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, there was
No way.
memes like VOCM and like K-Rock and 99.1 Hits FM. All of the guys had memes coming out that it was around Valentine's Day, so I guess it was around 3 years ago that
Oh, crazy.
the cauliflower was more expensive than roses, so you should give your loved one a cauliflower instead of a rose.
I'm not sure how that would go over, but yeah. Yeah, I see
You
it.
painted pink.
Yeah. Or a bouquet of kale. That'd
There
be
you
good
go.
too. Yeah. Funny. Well, that's awesome. Answered all my questions. That's great. I wish you guys the best of luck, and I'm going to keep track of the story and see
Thank you
where
so
it
much.
goes. And yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Deadly. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. For any and all past episodes, be sure